we have to be very, very careful about the suspect, the defendant, who has been charged now with the murders of 3 kids and attacking kids. The Prime Minister, the Home Secretary, and indeed the police knew that there was a terror-related aspect to Axel Rudakubana.
Well, I think the timing was very carefully engineered. I think my own sense is that Keir Starmer and the Home Secretary knew perfectly well about these extra details.
An Al-Qaeda manual found in the possession of a teenager accused of murdering 3 young girls. Why hasn't this been classified as terrorism? Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video. The Southport case has taken a shocking turn, leaving the public grappling with more questions than answers.
The government's own independent reviewer of terrorism legislation, Jonathan Hall KC, has said repeatedly recently that it is important in incidents of terrorism that the authorities put out more information sooner.
All of us in this House have a choice to make, including both candidates to be the next Tory leader. They can either support the police in their difficult task. I think it's very important, first and foremost, that in all cases, including the particularly difficult case that the Speaker mentioned earlier, that the police and prosecutors are able to do their difficult job.
As we unravel the mystery, we'll explore the complexities of this case that defies easy categorization. The quiet streets of Southport were shattered by unimaginable tragedy. 3 young girls, their lives cut short in a senseless act of violence. As the community reeled, authorities quickly zeroed in on a suspect, 17-year-old Axel Rudakubana. But this is where the story takes a bewildering turn. Rudakubana now faces a laundry list of charges that read like something out of a Hollywood thriller. 3 counts of murder, 10 counts of attempted murder, possession of a knife. And then it gets even stranger, manufacturing a biological toxin and possessing a terrorist manual. How does a teenager go from appearing in a BBC Children in Need video as Doctor Who at age 12 to being accused of such horrific crimes just 5 years later? The conflicting narratives surrounding Rudakubana's background have left many struggling to make sense of it all. Perhaps the most chilling detail to emerge is the discovery of an Al-Qaeda manual in Rudakubana's possession, titled Military Studies in the Jihad Against the Tyrants, the Al-Qaeda Training Manual. Its presence raises alarming questions about his intentions and the nature of the attack. Yet curiously, authorities have hesitated to classify this incident as terrorism. Why? The public is growing increasingly frustrated with the limited information being released. Political figures have even started voicing concerns over the lack of transparency. And just when you think this case couldn't get any more disturbing, we learn of another charge against Rudakubana, manufacturing ricin. This isn't just any poison. According to Professor Tim Atkins from the government's Defense Science Technology Laboratory, as little as 0.5 milliliters of ricin can be lethal to humans. The implications are truly terrifying. As speculation runs rampant, police have urged the public to refrain from jumping to conclusions.
Inside Number 10 set out precisely why, in his experience, Sir Keir Starmer would have known about this perhaps within hours.
You know, in the House of Commons, you have legal privilege. Why did the Speaker of the House, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, Labour, why did he tell MPs that they mustn't discuss this?
And I took that to be very, very credible information. And it was extraordinary at Prime Minister's questions today to see the Speaker, Lindsay Hoyle, effectively shutting MPs down.
Emphasizing the importance of a fair trial. But it's hard not to wonder, what else aren't we being told? The Southport case has opened a Pandora's box of questions about youth violence, terrorism, and the role of social media in spreading misinformation. As we dig deeper into this tangled web, we'll explore how this tragedy is forcing us to confront some uncomfortable truths about our society. What underlying issues have we been ignoring, and how can we prevent such horrors from happening again? While the nation grapples with the Southport tragedy, a sinister undercurrent threatens to tear communities apart. Far-right groups have seized upon this incident, weaponizing misinformation to further their agenda. But what's the real story behind these protests, and how are they reshaping the landscape of British society? The Labour Party's claims about knife crime paint a grim picture. Over the past decade, sharp objects have been involved in a staggering 38% of homicide cases. It's a statistic that sends shivers down the spine of parents and community leaders alike. The government's response? A series of attempts to address youth violence that have left many scratching their heads. Social media has played a particularly insidious role in the Southport case. False claims about the suspect's background spread like wildfire, fueling far-right protests and riots. The Merseyside police found themselves in the unenviable position of having to counter these rumours, stating unequivocally that Axel Rudakubana was born in the UK, but the damage was already done. Patrick Green, CEO of the Ben Kinsella Trust, offers a sobering perspective on the root causes of youth violence. It's not just about knives, he argues. Drug-related violence, poverty, and a lack of mental health support for young people all play their part in this toxic brew. And let's not forget the impact of austerity measures. Critics argue that cuts to police budgets and youth services have left a generation vulnerable to the allure of crime. The riots following the Southport attack have laid bare the fragility of community relations. Local leaders have condemned the violence, pointing to the corrosive effect of online misinformation. But their words seem to fall on deaf ears as tensions continue to simmer. So why the strict reporting restrictions in the Southport case? The answer lies in the Children and Young Persons Act of 1933. Despite Rudakubana being 18 at the time of the incident, this law typically protects the identities of suspects under 18. It's a legal quirk that's left many questioning whether justice and transparency are truly being served. As we grapple with the fallout from Southport, one thing becomes clear. This case is a mirror reflecting the deep-seated issues plaguing British society. From the rise of knife crime to the spread of misinformation, from far-right exploitation to community divisions, the challenges we face are complex and interconnected. The question now is, are we ready to confront these uncomfortable truths and work towards real solutions? As we wrap up our journey through the Southport case, we're left with a tangle of unanswered questions. Why the reluctance to classify this as terrorism, despite the Al-Qaeda manual? What's the real story behind the ricin charge? And how did a teenager go from BBC Children in Need to facing murder charges? The case underscores a critical need for transparency in our justice system. When information is scarce, speculation runs wild, fueling far-right protests and community tensions. But there's a delicate balance to strike. We must protect the integrity of ongoing investigations and the rights of the accused while keeping the public informed. This tragedy forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about youth violence in Britain. It's not just about knives, it's about poverty, mental health, and a generation left vulnerable by austerity measures. As we grapple with these issues, we need a balanced approach that addresses root causes while ensuring community safety. The Southport case isn't just a local tragedy, it's a mirror reflecting deep-seated societal issues. From the rise of knife crime to the spread of misinformation, the challenges we face are complex and interconnected. Are we ready to move beyond sensationalism and work towards real solutions? The answer to that question will shape the future of our communities and our nation.